Live from Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. President Tinubu signs amended Electoral Act 2026 into law following passage by the National Assembly. Chief Justice of Nigeria swears in 14 new judges of the Federal High Court, charges them to uphold Constitution. Peace talks in Geneva to end Russia-Ukraine war end in deadlock.
In business, power generation companies of Nigeria deny extortion allegations, say NLC statement is misleading and harmful.
And in sports, FIFA and UEFA presidents dragged before International Criminal Court for allegedly aiding and abetting war crimes in Palestine. Details and later.
News begins now. We begin tonight with the controversial issue which has stirred Nigeria's polity and politics in the last few weeks. Now, President Bola Tinubu has signed the Electoral Act 2022 Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2026 into law, marking a significant step in the ongoing efforts to strengthen Nigeria's electoral framework. Here are key changes in the amended Electoral Act 2026. Nigeria's National Assembly passed the 2026 amended Electoral Act on February 17, mandating electronic results transmission. The new law compresses timelines, tightens voter ID requirements, and increases penalties. The 2026 Act reduces election notice to 300 days. Funding must reach INEC 6 months pre-election, with compressed windows for candidate submission and publication. Electronic transmission to IREV is now compulsory. BIVAS remains the accreditation standard, while physical EC8A sheets serve as primary backups during technical failures. Registration is limited to NIN, passports, or birth certificate. While PVCs are mandatory, voters can now download cards online to prevent disenfranchisement. Indirect primaries are abolished, leaving only direct primaries and consensus. Parties retain autonomy over these modes, though internal guidelines now regulate direct primaries. The amended law introduces a tougher stance on misconduct. Statutory fines and custodial sentences for electoral offences have been adjusted upward from 2022 standards. We now cross to Abuja to join former Education Minister and rights activist Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. Also with me in the studio here in Lagos is a legal practitioner, GT Oguiyi. Both of them will be doing a deep dive into the signing of the Electoral Act. Thank you very much, Dr. Ezekwesili and Mr. Oguiyi, for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
I'll start with you in the studio. I haven't had the honor of having a conversation with you on the Electoral Act, so I'll just ask you your thoughts on the entire process that led to the signing, the controversies around the clause about transmission and manual, and the protests that have trailed it.
Well, my general impression is that this is just another step in our electoral experimentation and democratic process since 1999. By my reckoning and calculation, this is the 8th amendment of the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act was amended in 2001, 2002, 2003, in 2006, 2010, 2011, 2015, 2022, and now in 2026. And it proves the point that in the legislative process over the Electoral Act, instead of legislators, our representatives, proactively taking a bold step to comprehensively reform the Electoral Act in tandem with the wishes of the people and best practices, electoral practices all over the world. All we've had has been a piecemeal reform, year after year and all that. And I dare tell you that maybe another 3 years or 4 years down the line, we'll still reform this Electoral Act, which is still the same thing that has been done with all the alterations to the Constitution. While, many persons are saying that rather than have that kind of piecemeal approach to constitutional making or remaking, we should have one, popular constitutional making process where all the concerns will be attended to. Now, the major controversy regarding this amendment is the issue of transmission of results via Beavers and RF portal. You recall that the 2015 amendment introduced Beavers, particularly regarding accreditation of voters, so that the process will be very authentic and that there will be integrity in the process by identifying voters. Because, as Nigerians know, rigging starts from accreditation process, when people who are not supposed to vote are allowed to vote, including minors, etc., whose names are not on the electoral register. So, 2015 introduced Beavers. 2022 introduced IRF. But even at that, we had a problem with that. And so the big contention has been whether there will be automatic real-time transmission of results. But in discussing that issue, there had been a lot of obfuscation, if you like, because basically we're still balloting. We've not transited to a full sum electronic conduct of election. So it's not that you are going to have a process whereby people will go to the polling booth and punch in all they need to punch in, and then there will be an automatic transmission, and then there will be collation. No, balloting will still take place, and results from EC 8A will still be produced. It is that result that will be scanned and transmitted. That way, people can then, do their own tallies. People can do their own collation. But what this Electoral Act is saying is that there will still be that, and that from that, you still go to the Ward Collation Center, to the local government collation, to the senatorial, gubernatorial, or national collation center in Abuja, depending on whether it is a senatorial election, gubernatorial election, and so on and so forth. The issue is whether you're going to have that electronic transmission of the results, and that if those results are not transmitted, whether that should invalidate the election. And of course, eventually, the way the National Assembly resolved that is to say, okay, unlike before, when transmission of that result, EC 8A, was discretionary as affirmed by the Supreme Court, when it said that it was in the electoral guidelines, and that having been banished to the electoral guidelines, INEC had the discretion, the prerogative to transmit or not. Now it's been made mandatory because it's now inserted in the body of the legislation, which is an improvement. And I think that with that, we'll see how far we can go with that in our path of experimentation come 2027.
All right, let's bring in Dr. Ezekwesili. You've followed the whole situation, and activists, I even saw one earlier speak on the fact that they will continue to push until changes that they want happens. What is your immediate response to the signing of the law, into law rather, of the Electoral Act, despite the heated rejection of the particular session on e-transmission?
No, the political class has behaved to pattern. Are we surprised? I think that what happened earlier today is basically the political class, the executive branch, and the legislative branch of government telling us that they will not change. We have always seen swift action anytime that the politicians want to act against the interest of the Nigerian people. There is a swiftness that really tells the story of how they have decided that our democracy is determined by them and not by the citizens. And so I'm not surprised. But what I know for a fact is that they would have to bear responsibility for whatever happens in this country on the lead to the 2027 election. They would have to be responsible for how the citizens respond to this clear vexation and provocation of the citizens of this country who are asking for a simple thing. Just simply saying, we want electoral transparency. That's all they are asking for. And then they have leaders who are saying, we don't care about your demand for transparency. We prefer the dark ways. With that, we prefer ambiguities. We prefer opacity in the way that elections are conducted, because we really don't care about your power as citizens to be the ones who vote and give legitimacy to us being in public office. And so there is a journey that's yet ahead of us. It is not over until it is over.
Okay, let me come back to you. Do you believe it is over? Because one of the contentions here is the powers that was given to INEC to decide if they're going to resort to the form or they're going to do e-transmission. That's it. Some would say at the heart of it, and I've spoken to guests here that say it's a trust deficit. If the people had a little more trust in the process, perhaps it wouldn't be such a contentious issue.
I agree. Trust issue is there. But as I said earlier, because this, in a manner of speaking, a collation of views and, perceptions and all that. The issue, and I must dilate here a little, is whether we're going to make electronic transmission of results absolute under that provision, or we're going to allow for a window of an alternative. The fear which borders on the issue of trust is whether that kind of ambivalence or ambiguity, which Dr. Ezekwesili referred to as opacity, will not be exploited to the disadvantage of the Nigerian people who are yearning for a transparent process. But the way it's being explained is that since you have that result in your hand and you are expected to transmit it electronically, whether there are challenges of network or whatever, you are expected to transmit that electronically. In case that is not possible, that result will be taken to the next collation center and so on and so forth. And that at the end of the day, there is an assumption that agents will be there who will have been given the results. The fear of many, particularly partisan political parties, is that in the event that they do not have the capacity to put polling agents all over the, because in the last election, many political parties didn't even have the means or the numbers to have polling agents everywhere. We are talking about 177,000 odd, wards, polling units all over the country. So in the event that they don't have, what's the guarantee that those results will be transmitted? And they may get votes from those polling units. And I think that that's the fear. Because if their polling officers are there, their polling agents are there, they will have been given the results signed by all the officials and the representatives of the political party there. Hard copies, which they can use for their own collation to, predict or determine the outcome of the results. And I think that the law is not the curse. The curse is the conduct, or if you will, the misconduct of politicians and those who bid for power. So that even if you had insisted that transmission alone, electronic transmission of result, should be the way to display result on RF and collect result without recourse to the hard evidence, the copies from EC8 you have, you then be dealing with the possibility of politicians themselves now hacking into and then disrupting results from certain areas.
So even the e-transmission is not insulated.
So we can improve on our law. That's what I'm saying. We can improve on our law, and we should continue to improve on our law. But we must also, in tandem, improve on our electoral conduct and our democratic process.
Dr. Ezekwesili, you've advocated many times for mandatory electronic transmission of results. But the arguments, as upset as many are about this decision of the president to go ahead and sign and the controversies around the electronic transmission, some say it's possibly the only option if we do not have adequate infrastructure for real-time transmission of results. Do you believe that should that become law, e-transmission, for instance, that wouldn't have these issues? Are we there yet?
It baffles me how people sort of take joy in saying we're not yet there. Where are we not yet at? In 2021, the electronic transmission of results from polling units was first used in the conduct of the Anambra elections. And I think it recorded an average of 98% successful transmission of results. In the 2022 Osun election, it was used. In the 2022 Ekiti election, it was used. Average success rate, 98%. Why is that so? It's so because it's a simple thing. It really is. It really is a system to enable people to have an electronic documentation of what has been agreed to have happened at each of the polling units. People are trying to confuse this whole thing. Some are pretending that what advocates are asking for cannot be done because advocates are saying when you vote, then it goes to the internet and then you can see there is. No, it's actually what has happened that this electronic transmission on a real-time basis is mandatorily saying put it up on the internet into the INEC result viewing portal so that it is there. It is really a transparency mechanism because we do know that from EC8A that carries the results from the polling unit to the next level collation center where it then cascades up until it gets to the national in the case of presidential elections, is subject to human agency. And that what we have usually seen is that as it transports itself to the next level collation center, TPEX cancellations, haven't you seen mutilated EC8A forms? That when that happens in a case where it is mandatory for the electronic transmission to happen, when you present that kind of a mutilated one after it left the polling unit, the one that was automatically uploaded into the IREV will be a comparison. On the basis of it, it can be clearly determined that something wrong has happened. So when citizens say that my vote must count, they are essentially putting trust in the fact that when they are at the polling unit and the counting of votes has happened and it has been recorded into the from EC8A and uploaded into IREV while they were there, it is what they see on the IREV that reflects what happened when they were at the polling unit. So if you go cancelling things and changing numbers, it will catch up with those perpetrators.
Okay.
And when it goes to the law courts, it would be an acceptable evidence in the eyes of the law. That did not happen in the 2023 election. So the mandatory nature of this means that you have legalized it and that nobody would say that it is not a sufficient evidence, because INEC is not under any mandate to do what you are providing as your evidence.
Dr. Ezekwesili, I hope we have enough time for me to come to talk about the government responsible for the response of the people. I'm really interested in that. But before you respond, let me ask Mr. Ogunye to share his thoughts. What are the implications of the Electoral Act 2026 on the powers of INEC to conduct free and fair election?
INEC has a duty to conduct a free and fair election, and they say that they will conduct free and fair election. But at each turn and bend, they remind us that they are not the only agency involved in the conduct of election. Law enforcement is involved. And now on the side of civil society, observers, the citizens themselves are involved. Does INEC, for example, have the power to prevent politicians from sharing money and buying votes, and to prevent people from selling their votes? I think that INEC does not have such power. Because when you're talking about the free and fair election, it's not just about the duty of INEC, but also about responsibility of everybody across the board. But regarding this a new amendment, new law.
Yeah, manual.
Yes, I think that the excuse or the alibi that was available to INEC the last time in not faithfully and handsomely, transmitting election results electronically, that alibi is gone now, because statutorily, INEC is now mandated to transmit those results.
So, but the discretion as to who defines what is failure to communicate, I mean, communication, those loopholes, are people being unnecessarily panicky, or these are really cases that would possibly make a mess of all of this at the end of the day, and then we'll still go back to courts?
No, those fears are genuine. They are genuine. Because I tell you, for all the electronic appliances that we use, either in banking, electronic banking, or whatever and all that, if you transmit or you send money, I'm going to use that, it's as basic as that. You send money and there is a digital network problem, and that sending of money is hanging. Your money is reversed or it will take time before
it comes to you.
So there can be no excuse that, oh, the network will be failing us. If you transmit and it doesn't go, keep doing that until it goes. And if it bounces back, redo it again. So that at the end of the day, 100%, all the results will have been transmitted, perhaps over a 24-hour period. Okay? And so saying that, oh, in case this does not happen immediately at the polling unit, you can no longer transmit, rely on the Form EC8A, is giving, in my view, a room for the possibility of manipulation.
Sorry, I'm going to come to you, Dr.
But thus far, that's the legislation the legislature has given. And they say it's democracy. Okay? So citizens have the right to protest, but by majority, they've given out that legislation, and by frenetic speed, the president has 30 days to sign. He signed it on day one. So that's the new legislation we have to deal with.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm harping on this, but who decides at what point in the process that this is going to happen? We're going to do it manually. Is it at the discretion of the officials at the polling unit or the collation officers?
This is my assumption. Given the way that section 60 is worded now, it becomes the responsibility of the polling officer. And there will be an ostensible, verifiable basis at that unit for a recourse to just the Form EC8A and abandoning the transmission. For example, what they've said is that if the electronic transmission is not immediately possible there, then there will be a basis to rely on Form EC8A alone to move to the next collation center. Now, that means that scientifically, it can be decided there and then, just as we see in previous election, that, oh, Beavers is failing, it's not moving. So for people to then understand that, oh, there's a network challenge here and there, on that basis, the polling officer will then be in a position to decide that, look, this apparent.
I sincerely wish we had more time, but hopefully we could have an exclusive on this. Dr. Obieze-Kwesili, you said earlier that the government...
I do have to correct. I must correct something first. Let me correct something first. Okay? Listen, uploading the scanned EC8A is similar to you sending a WhatsApp message to your friend. And then it turns out that there's no network. As soon as you have a network, it will go to the person. That's how simple this technology is. It has been used. It has been proven to not have this kind of level of failure that is being built into our law. So what they have done is to say, we have given you electronic transmission, but then they've taken it away by those provisos that they have put about failure and about all other obstacles that they are intending to make the norm. They are going to turn those provisos to the norm.
All right, I'm being told we're really out of time. So in 30 seconds, if you can, the concerns you raised about the response of the people, because some activists are saying that they're going to continue to protest this decision of the government. What do you expect to see in the coming days in regard to this signing today?
I've already said it. The citizens are not going to back down. It is good that the president has shown that he's no different from the legislature, or that as a matter of fact, it was all instigated by the executive. Now we would have to face the fact that they have declared war on our democracy. And those who care about the democracy will fight for the democracy. Thank God some of us fought for this democracy when it most mattered.
Thank you very much, Dr. Obieze-Kwesili, for speaking with us. And, of course, Mr. Jiti Ogunye, a pleasure to have you in the studio. All right, coming up, at least 2 killed in Ondo APC World Congress as violence erupts in Idare Local Council. Details of this and more after the break. Staying with election matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission has called on political parties, candidates and voters to ensure a peaceful and credible area council election on February 21st, 2026. The commission says that over 1,680,000 registered voters will cast ballots across 2,822 polling units in the 6 area councils. Chairman of the commission, Professor Joash Amopito, spoke to newsmen in Abuja saying that all preparations have been completed.
On Saturday, 21st February 2026, over 1.6 million registered voters across the 2,822 polling units will make their choice. Our collective duty is to ensure that their votes are cast freely, counted accurately, and reflected transparently. The credibility of this process has strengthened the confidence in grassroots democracy. Therefore, as we approach the Saturday election, we must collectively resolve to raise the bar even higher than it is.
At least 2 persons were reportedly killed on Wednesday during the World Congress of the All Progressive Congress APC in Ondo State as violence erupted in Idori local government area. Several others were said to have sustained injuries during the crisis, which also led to the burning of a vehicle. The incident came barely 24 hours after suspected political talks disrupted a stakeholders meeting at the party secretariat in Akure. The meeting was presided over by the state chairman of the party, Ade Timehi. Sources in Idori said the Congress could not hold in some wards as hoodlums allegedly attacked party members. And one of our top stories tonight in the judiciary. Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekere-Ekun, has urged the newly appointed judges of the Federal High Court to uphold the nation's constitution with courage, integrity, and unwavering independence. Justice Kekere-Ekun gave the charge during the swearing-in ceremony of 14 Federal High Court judges at the Supreme Court in Abuja. The Chief Justice added that the bench must remain impartial and guided solely by the law, saying that public confidence in the judiciary depends on the conduct and character of judicial officers.
Appointment to the bench is not an elevation of status alone. It is the acceptance of a burden of impartiality, restraint, discipline, and unwavering fidelity to the Constitution. The Federal High Court occupies a pivotal place in our judicial architecture. By constitutional design, it exercises jurisdiction over matters that directly shape the economic, political, and regulatory life of the nation, including revenue, banking, maritime affairs, intellectual property, and other complex commercial disputes. Your decisions will resonate far beyond the courtroom. They will influence markets, institutions, public confidence, and in many instances, the stability of governance itself.
The Federal High Court in Abuja has denied the trial-within-trial request of the 5 defendants accused of the 2022 St. Francis Catholic Church massacre in Owo, Ondo State. Defense counsel Abdullahi Mohammed had objected to the admissibility of the defendants' confessional statements, arguing that the statements tendered to the DSS were not made by the defendants. Justice Emeka Uwite, who ruled in favor of the prosecution, denied the request of the defense counsel, stating that a court can only conduct a trial within a trial on the issue of voluntariness.
The contention was that the defendants didn't make the statements at all. And that led to an argument of what the law is, which I don't have to be stating here. And the court agreed with us that the defendant's counsel's argument is untenable.
It wasn't their statements. It wasn't their statements. They wrote it for them. Yeah, and they asked them to top print. In the course of top printing, they were never seen. In the top printing, we were never seen. One person just did it. Top print for everybody.
Away from Nigeria, 4 South African men who had been trapped in Russia have arrived at the OR Tambo airport this evening. They are the first group of the 19 men, mostly from KwaZulu-Natal, who were allegedly lured to Russia on the false pretense and subsequently deployed to the front lines of the war in Ukraine. They left the country in July last year. Meanwhile, the second group is expected to arrive in the country in the coming weeks. Into one of our top headlines tonight. Trilateral negotiations between Russia, Ukraine and the United States aimed at ending Moscow's war in Ukraine concluded in Geneva on Wednesday without a breakthrough. The talks, mediated by U.S. officials and held over 2 days, wrapped up after only about 2 hours on the final session. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky described the discussions as difficult and accused the Russian delegation of delaying progress. Russian negotiators said the talks were businesslike, but confirmed that fundamental disagreements remain and more talks are planned. Tonight returns with business, sports and entertainment news. Please stay with us.
Now, generation companies in Nigeria have rejected allegations by the Nigeria Labour Congress that they engage in institutionalized extortion, calling the claims misleading and harmful to efforts in stabilizing the power sector. In a statement on Wednesday, Joy Ogaji, CEO of the Association of Power Generation Companies, said the NLC's remarks did not reflect the realities of the Nigerian electricity supply industry. She acknowledged public frustration over unstable electricity, but emphasized that the sector faces major financial exposure with unpaid invoices exceeding 6 trillion naira. And looking at the equities market, it extended its recovery as the all-share index added 0.56% to close at 190,427.96 points, pushing market capitalization up to 122.236 trillion naira. Well, it wasn't an explosive rally, but buyers stayed in control through the most of the session. Let's now look at the sectoral performance, starting with the banking industry that climbed 0.56% with steady beats in Zenith Bank, keeping the sector comfortably in the green. Insurance, however, dipped 0.2%, showing mild weakness as select counters like light profit taking is what we saw in the sector. Oil and gas kept the momentum, 3.88 in rising, posing as the session's strongest pillar with renewed appetite in Aradel amplifying influence. Consumer goods rose 0.46%, reflecting quiet but consistent accumulation, while industrial goods gained 0.5%, supported by Lafarge Africa's resilience. That's business. I am Lekon Obanjo.
Hello and welcome to sports. Team Nigeria Athletics have stepped up preparations for the forthcoming Commonwealth Games as their 6-week first phase camping program enters its second week in Asaba, the Delta State capital. The camp, which brings together a blend of seasoned campaigners and promising young talent, has already begun to take shape with rigorous training sessions at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. Week 2 of the first phase has seen focus shift from general conditioning to more event-specific drills. Morning sessions are largely dedicated to endurance and strength work, while evenings feature technical refinement and speed training. Camp officials say the 6-week program is designed to lay a solid foundation before the team transitions into more competitive simulations and international exposure ahead of the Games. And a formal complaint has been filed with the International Criminal Court accusing FIFA President Gianni Infantino and UEFA President Alexander Seferin of aiding and abetting war crimes and crimes against humanity in occupied Palestine. The complaint centers on FIFA and UEFA allowing Israeli football clubs based in illegal settlements on occupied Palestinian land to compete in official competitions. These clubs are built on land taken from Palestinians and operate under the Israeli FA with full international recognition. Lawyers argue that this helps sustain Israel's settlement system, which is illegal under international law and considered a war crime under the ICC's Rome Statute. Palestinians are excluded from these settlements and unable to enter, attend matches, or participate in the clubs. The filing was submitted by Palestinian players, clubs, landowners, and other interested groups. And finally, Portuguese side Benfica claimed there is a defamation campaign against Gianluca Prestiani after UEFA launched an investigation into claims he racially abused Real Madrid winger Vinicius Jr. Tuesday's Champions League tie at Benfica was halted for 10 minutes after Vinicius reported alleged racist abuse to referee Francois Letessier, and he and his teammates left the field. Prestiani, who could face minimum of 10-match ban from European competition if found guilty, denied directing racial abuse at Vinicius. On Wednesday, Benfica defended Prestiani via a post on their official X account alongside a video of the alleged incident, saying, given the distance, the Real Madrid players could not have heard what they claimed to have heard. And that's all on sports tonight. Up next is entertainment.
And now let's jump into the world of entertainment as Nigerian global stars Tems and Burna Boy have officially set a new Billboard Hot 100 record for African artists. The duo now holds the highest number of entries on the prestigious US chart, surpassing South African rock band Seether. The milestone came after their recent feature on J. Cole's album, The Fall Off, debuted on the chart, bringing both stars to 8 Hot 100 entries each, the most ever of an African act. Tems now leads African artists in 2026 chart entries, while Burna Boy extends his groundbreaking round as the first African artist to appear on the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 consecutive years, further cementing Afrobeat's global influence, and we're here for it every now and then. Now let's talk about something quite interesting, as Facebook and TikTok has been suspended in Gabon until further notice, following an order from the country's media regulator. Authorities say the move is aimed at preventing conflict-inducing excesses, accusing social media of spreading defamatory, hateful, and false content that threatens national unity and institutional stability. Now, the High Authority for Communications cited cyberbullying and unauthorized data disclosure. Well, that's all we have on entertainment tonight, by the way.
And it is a wrap tonight. As always, we'll appreciate your feedback. Please share them. Use the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on social media platforms as well at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Good night.